digital gold, a giant scam, the future of money, and a colossal waste of energy, sometimes all in the same news broadcast. It has crashed by more than 80% more than once, and it has turned ordinary people into millionaires. So after more than 15 years and trillions of dollars, let's cut through every argument, every headline, and every price chart, and answer the one question that actually matters. What problem does Bitcoin actually solve? Today, we follow the money to find out. Here's the strange thing about Bitcoin in 2026. It has gone completely mainstream. The biggest banks on Wall Street sell it. It trades in ordinary investment accounts. Even some governments now hold it. And yet, if you stopped 100 people on the street, almost none of them could plainly explain what it's actually for. To understand it, you have to forget the price for a moment and go back to the problem it was built to solve. And that problem is about trust. Think about what happens every time you send money digitally. You tap your card or send a payment on your phone. In the middle of that transaction sits a trusted third party, a bank or a company like a card network. Their job is to check that you actually have the money and that you're not spending the same money twice. That system works, but it comes with a hidden cost. You have to trust that middleman completely. And that middleman can freeze your account. It can block a payment it doesn't like. It can charge you fees. It can be hacked. And the government behind the currency can always print more of it, quietly eroding what your money is worth. For decades, this was simply unavoidable. There was a famous puzzle in computer science called the double spend problem. Digital things are easy to copy. So how do you stop someone from copying a digital coin and spending it twice? The only known answer was to have a central referee, a bank, keep the official ledger of who owns what. Then, in 2008, an anonymous figure known only as Satoshi Nakamoto published a solution, and it was genuinely revolutionary. The idea was this: what if you could run money with no central referee at all? Instead of one bank keeping the ledger, thousands of computers all around the world keep identical copies of it. Every 10 minutes, they compete to bundle up the latest transactions and agree on them through a process called mining. No single company, no government, no person is in control. The rules are enforced by the network itself. For the first time in history, you could send value to anyone, anywhere on Earth without asking a bank or anyone for permission. That is the actual invention at the heart of Bitcoin. Not the price, not the hype. It's money that works without anyone having to trust a middleman. So, concretely, what problems does that solve? Really, 3. The first is censorship resistance. Because no company or government controls the network, no one can freeze your Bitcoin or block your transaction. Think about who that matters to. A dissident under an authoritarian regime? Someone trapped in a collapsing economy with a bank that shut its doors? Or a person cut off by sanctions? For them, money that cannot be switched off is not a gimmick, it's freedom. The second is protection from debasement. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. That limit is written into the code, and no government can print more. In a world where central banks can create money at will, remember Argentina? That fixed, unchangeable scarcity is the entire pitch. It's why supporters call Bitcoin digital gold, a store of value that sits outside the control of any single government. And the third is that it's a neutral, global money. It doesn't belong to any country. It runs 24 hours a day, across every border, in a world that's fragmenting into rival blocks and slowly losing faith in relying on any one nation's currency. That neutrality has a real appeal. But now let's be honest, because this is where most Bitcoin explanations quietly cheat. Who actually needs this? If you live in a stable country with a bank you trust and inflation that's low, then Bitcoin solves a problem you may not even feel you have. Your dollars or euros work perfectly well. You can send money instantly, and your government isn't printing your savings into dust. For you, Bitcoin can look like a solution in search of a problem. But zoom out. Billions of people don't live like that. They live under high inflation, strict controls on moving their own money, broken banking systems, or governments they can't trust. For them, in places like Argentina, Nigeria, Turkey, or Venezuela, the ability to hold money that no one can freeze and no one can inflate is genuinely, powerfully useful. Bitcoin's clearest purpose was never speculation in the rich world. It was a lifeboat for places where trust in money has already failed. And to be fair, we have to talk about what Bitcoin does not solve. It is a poor, everyday cash. It's wildly volatile, which is terrible for something meant to store value in the short term. It can be slow and expensive to use for small payments. Its energy consumption is real and controversial. And here's the honest truth about the market. Most people don't buy Bitcoin to escape tyranny. They buy it hoping the price goes up. A huge part of what you see is pure speculation, a casino bolted onto a genuinely clever invention, which brings us to the great irony of 2026. The thing that was built to escape banks and governments has now been embraced by them. Wall Street packages it into funds, corporations hold it in their treasuries, nations add it to their reserves. Bitcoin is increasingly treated as digital gold, an asset to own and bet on, rather than digital cash to actually spend. Whether that's Bitcoin's ultimate victory or the quiet death of its original rebellious idea is one of the biggest debates in finance. Meanwhile, the job Bitcoin never nailed, fast, stable digital payments, is being quietly taken over by stablecoins, regular dollars living on a blockchain, extending the dollar's reach rather than replacing it. So why should you care, even if you never buy a single Satoshi? Because whatever you think of it, Bitcoin forced the entire world to rethink what money even is. It launched an industry, stablecoins, digital currencies, tokenized assets, that is reshaping how money moves across the planet. And understanding the real problem it solves lets you finally cut through both the breathless hype and the lazy dismissals. Bitcoin isn't magic internet money, and it isn't simply a scam. It's a real technological answer to one very specific question. How do you have money without having to trust anyone to run it? Whether you personally need that answer depends entirely on one thing: how much you trust the financial system you already live in. So what problem does Bitcoin solve? Money without a middleman. The real question was never whether it works. It does. It's whether you need it. And that answer looks very different from a street in Buenos Aires than it does from one in London. Watch three things: whether adoption keeps growing where money is broken, whether Bitcoin stays digital gold or ever becomes real everyday payments, and how governments choose to respond to money they can't control. If this made the news make more sense, that is exactly what this channel is for: the money story behind the headlines. Subscribe and we'll break down the next one together.